welcome to the video. This is Rajan, and in this video I'm going to explain about the probabilistic principal component analysis. So before we go to probabilistic principal component analysis, first we see principal component analysis. It's actually a dimensionality reduction technique. The method for PCA is given here. We standardize the data set, we obtain covariance matrix, then we compute eigenvalues and eigenvectors and sort the eigenvalues in descending order, and we take the eigenvectors corresponding to largest eigenvalues. On these eigenvectors are the forms the new axis. These eigenvectors are the basis vectors of the new axis, and onto them when we project the data set we get the reduced dimension on data, and by doing so we capture the maximum variance. When we are capturing the maximum variance means we are not losing much data of even after reducing the dimension of the data set. So when PCA is there, why probabilistic principal component analysis came? Because PCA lacks an associated probabilistic model. It doesn't have any probabilistic model, so that's why they proposed this PPCA, a probabilistic principal component analysis. And here we use PCA and a Gaussian latent variable model to propose this probabilistic principal component analysis. So PCA, as we have seen earlier, mm, uh, now we shall look at the Gaussian latent variable model. So actually latent variable means the unobserved variable. This latent variable method is a modeling approach where we assume the data we observe is influenced by some hidden variables that we can't directly measure. This latent variable captures the underlying structure of patterns in the data, some correlations between the variables. And this factor analysis is the type of latent variable method. It assumes that the observed data is generated by a few latent factors plus some noise. So it says this equation. This equation means each observed variable is modeled as a linear combination of these latent factors with some noise. So this t is the observed data vector, and this x is the latent variable vector, and this e is the noise. This mu is just the mean of the data, just for representation they have written it. And this noise we have assumed that it is the Gaussian in this, and we also assume this t as the Gaussian, and we find w and psi estimation. We estimate them by using maximum likelihood, which we are going to do in the next slides. And this factor analysis assumes psi is diagonal, that is noise is uncorrelated, and this diagonal psi captures variable specific noise. So it captures the noise that is specific to the each variable. So we can see that factor analysis separates the shared variance. Shared variance means that is a part of variable variation that it share with, as it says here, it shares with the other variables. It actually comes from the underlying factors that affect many variables at once. For some general example, if we take if the students do well in both maths and physics, it might be due to some common factor like general intelligence. That shared influence is the shared variance. Means everyone have the same general intelligence, so that's why everyone is getting the good marks. But this unique variance is the part of variance that is not shared with others. Maybe some students have some math specific skills, like only particular student have some good math ability, then this guy will be getting more marks and others will not get as marks as this guy. So that specialty he can't share with others, it is specific to him. So likewise this unique variance is specific to the some variable. And so when both are used for this latent variable method and the PCA are used for a dimensionality detection, can we get the principal components? Principal component, but principal components we'll see whether we can get principal components or not. So actually we don't get principal components by directly using latent variable method, because due to the variance and covariance distinction in standard factor analysis, the maximum likelihood estimates of the W generally may not span the principal subspace of the data. Can we overcome this? Yes. We model the noise as the isotropic Gaussian, that is same variance in all directions. Then this latent space in this PPCA naturally aligns with, means we get the principal components of the data. So we estimate this W and sigma square. Sigma square is the variance of the noise. Since we took isotropic Gaussian, so in every direction we have the same variance sigma square. So we shall see about in detail in the next slides. So one more thing, this isotropic Gaussian same variance means earlier we are seeing that psi is diagonal, that is the noise. If you see here, this psi is diagonal, and now since we assume this noise as isotropic Gaussian, and each and every element of this diagonal matrix will be same, and that is equal to the sigma square. And so next, if we see, now we shall see the probability model of PPCA. We already assumed this noise as isotropic Gaussian noise, and since we assumed this noise, if we apply some transformations and see the conditional distribution of observed data t given latent variable x, that is t given x, it will follow, it is also a Gaussian with mean wx plus mu and with variance sigma square I, covariance matrix or variance matrix. So if we assume this x as the Gaussian distribution by some transformation techniques applied, this we also see that t also follows the Gaussian, means t is also a Gaussian distribution with mean mu and covariance c, that we get by c is equal to w transpose plus sigma square I. This by some transformations will get this covariance and I have said earlier that we approximate or estimate w and this sigma square by maximum likelihood function, and this is the log likelihood from where we estimate our w and sigma square. In this, S is the sample covariance matrix. It is the covariance matrix that is directly obtained from the data set, actual data set, and C is the covariance of the model we have assumed here, that is t is equal to wx plus mu plus e. Covariance is came from C, came from here, came from there. And if you see this conditional distribution of latent variables, using Bayes rule, they have written this expression, the conditional distribution of the latent variable x given the observed data. This m is w transpose plus sigma square I. So then if we see later this derivation of the principal components, this log likelihood function we take and we substitute that c value, that is w transpose plus sigma square I here, and for getting the stationary condition, we set the gradient with respect to 0, with respect to w to 0, and from when we do that, we get this equation sc inverse w is equal to w. If you see that, then there will be three types of solutions. W is equal to 0, however it will be minima, so we ignore it, and other is C is equal to S, that will be very rare cases. And there is a third case in which one we take the S, W is not equal to 0 and C is not equal to S, so we express this W in terms of singular value decomposition, that is ULV transpose. And if we substitute this in above and if we derive, then we get this this SUJ is equal to Lj square plus sigma square into UJ. From this, if we write, then if you go and derive, then we'll get the general solution from here, and the whole derivation is there in appendix A of the research paper that I'll provide in the description, video description. So general solution we got as W max ML, maximum likelihood, is this. UK is the first Q eigenvectors of sample covariance matrix X, and AQ is the corresponding eigenvalues, and sigma square estimated noise variance, and R is some arbitrary orthogonal matrix. This R, why it came, we'll discuss later. So then similarly, if we derive, then for and if we plug this W back into the likelihood, then we get the maximum likelihood value estimator of sigma square. Lambda j are the eigenvalues of X. This is the average of smallest dq eigenvalues. So smallest dq eigenvalues, that is, if we compare with smallest dq eigenvalues are being modeled here as the noise, so remaining all were taken into this W. So here only you are getting some PCA type of thing, because the max first Q eigenvectors of sample covariance matrix, that is the eigenvectors that corresponding to the largest eigenvalues, and the ignored eigenvectors or ignored eigenvalues are the smallest d minus q eigenvalues that we are functionality reduction in PPCA. So the general motivation for PCA is to transform the data into some reduced dimension. So with some algebraic manipulation in WML, that is maximum likelihood, we may indeed obtain the standard projection onto the principal axis if we desire, if desired. So if we see, it's more natural from a probabilistic perspective to consider the dimensionality reduction process in terms of the distribution of latent variables conditioned on the observation. So that we have written here, conditional distribution over latent variables. The distribution of the latent variables conditioned on the observation. So actually this distribution may be conveniently summarized by the mean. So summarize the mean, and this mean serve as the low dimensional encoding, just like in the PCA. And it can be seen that if when sigma square tends to 0, m inverse tends to W transpose W, and from this then this represents an orthogonal projection into latent space, and so the PCA is recovered, or the it just mimics the PCA. And also this reconstruction can also be done using this Tn cap is equal to Wxn plus mu. So and also there is one more drawback is uh, when sigma square is greater than 0, it is the latent projection becomes skewed towards the origin as a result of the Gaussian marginal distribution of x, and because of this Tn cap will not be orthogonal projection, therefore it is not optimal. But optimal reconstruction of the observed data from conditional latent mean may be still obtained in the case of sigma square greater than 0. uh, Under this PPCS probabilistic model. And one more feature of this PPCA is it can handle the missing data also. Suppose if we take a data set in which some data points are missing, PCA cannot handle it. Means we have to enter the data set, or if we just give the data set, it will just ignore the points where the data points were not given. But here it allows the likelihood based estimation, means it predicts the values, data points values. In EM algorithm, it treats both latent variables xn and missing values tn as unobserved data, and can estimate the principal axis from incomplete data also. So this is one of the useful feature of the PPCA. And these mixtures of PPCA models also can be used, because uh, when a singular linear PCA model, this may not capture the complex structure in data, so multiple PPCAs will be used. They can be combined probabilistically. Then each component has its own mean, Wk and sigma square k. And EM algorithm is used for training, that is mentioned in appendix B of research paper, that I'll mention it in the description, and its benefits are written here. And controlling degrees of freedom, generally in higher dimensions, for full Gaussian models we need d into d plus 1 by 2 parameters. If d is very high, then it is practically it's somewhat infeasible with the limited data. But and also it leads to overfitting and poor generalization. When it comes to PPCA, covariance is modeled as C is equal to W transpose plus sigma square I, and it requires only this many amount of parameters. So this can be efficiently done when Q is less than D. And why this helps is reduces model complexity, because this number of parameters is reducing, and also we can control the degrees of freedom via this Q. And also suppose a tunable balance between flexibility and robustness. This we'll see by an example here. This is also from the research paper only. Dataset details. There's a dataset given, too few samples for reliable full covariance estimation, and if we see the output here, the uh, the prediction error for full covariance is this much, whereas with PPCA with 2, Q is equal to 2, we are getting the least prediction error. From this we can see that even PPCA with just 2 latent variables outperforming the full model, means this is the best balance between complexity and generalization. So from this we can see that PPCA can achieve better performance with fewer parameters, especially effective in low data high dimension settings. So thank you, that's for all, and these are the references I have used, and all the